Tell us about your start in crypto, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people hear that and they think I'm on, billionaires row here. I'm not quite there yet. I'll tell you that. I did buy Bitcoin in 13. It was like $130. I probably bought between 50 and 100. So it wasn't like I was buying thousands of them, but I sold it in 14. And then I started to heavily get back into cryptocurrency in 2017 because that's when I was actually making like a decent amount of money. And I was able to like comprehend what blockchain and cryptography was. And then I started to have more conviction in it as an actual asset class. So I didn't hold on to that. Obviously, hindsight, I wish I would have, but that's everyone's in that same boat. But yeah, now it's just really, really cool to see the industry and sector grow to what it is today, because I remember talking to financial advisors and professors and all that stuff about Bitcoin back then. And it was honestly just a big joke and only used for fraudulent activity. And now it's crazy to see public companies putting on their balance sheet. And it's been a really, really cool journey to be on.
And so in 2013, like, why did you start buying it? I mean, like, what was the appeal to you personally? Why did you think this was something that could potentially, be valuable?
Yeah, so pretty much the only reason why you would be buying Bitcoin before 2013 is either you're an absolute, geek nerd that geeks out over really, cool things that are on the internet, or you're using it for like nefarious purposes on like black markets. That was in 2012 was when I graduated high school. 2013 was my first freshman year in college. So I don't know if you heard about like the black markets on like Silk Road specifically, but that was like a super hot topic in college, at least where I was at. And it, like, especially inside of like different fraternities and things. So I just heard people talking about this internet money, and I'm like, okay, what is this? And then I looked into Bitcoin, and then I just bought some, just to buy some, and then got rid of it, and then over the next year. So it was really more on the side of, hey, you can use it on different marketplaces online to buy pretty much whatever the heck you want to buy. And if you look at the history of a lot of technologies that have come out, a lot of the times that's typically how they start, is on a way to just make markets more efficient, or to get around certain laws or regulations. And then as like that, that develops, right, it then becomes more accessible, and you would say acceptable to actually use in real business and with real consumers. So that's originally why. And then again, and I went into the corporate world, so I got my finance degree in college, went to work for the biggest bank inside the United States in asset management, and then that was when Bitcoin was, started at 1,100 and went to 20 grand in a matter of, I think it was within 9 months, in 17, and then went into a big bear market in 18. And that's when I ended up leaving the firm in 18 and started full-time running our funds in 2019.
And so you started a crypto fund. So what was that like? I mean, starting that, was it hard to do something like that? Do you have a lot of partners? Do you have a lot of employees? What does your company look like? How is it staffed?
Yeah, the really cool thing about funds they are traditionally very, very lean businesses. So you actually need, and you don't really want a ton of decision makers, because you want to have very clear thought process with investment decisions, but you totally need supporting admins, accountants, lawyers, and supporting employees to make sure like investor relations and investors are getting onboarded and stuff. So yeah, I do have a few partners, but it's a really unique business model, and you can pretty much do anything with funds. A lot of people only think of like hedge funds as like trading online. I mean, you could start a fund that revolves around, podcasts and getting people advertising on podcasts. Like there's an unlimited amount of things you can do with funds, but it was definitely a confusing process for me because I had no idea. I didn't know anyone that started a fund. I didn't have a mentor to go to help start a fund. It was just an idea. Like it was something that myself and one other partner were naturally gravitating towards every day. And we're like, hey, if we're talking about cryptocurrency every single day and spending a lot of time, why don't we just start a fund and we can put our own money together? So that's actually originally what we said. It was, let's just start a model where we can put our own money together, manage it together. And then we're like, hey, if we do well, then we'll start to raise money for this fund. So we started the fund and we just managed our own money from April 30th of 2019 through the end of 2019. And then we started to raise money in 2021 because we had like a proven track record and all that. So that's how it actually originally started, with just a vehicle for us to put money together. And then it evolved into a pretty large business now.
Well, I think that's really interesting. I think that's great that you were able to do something like that. And I wanted to make sure, just as a real quick side note to everybody listening or watching, I have an investment. I'm an investment representative. So I have a few licenses in the investment business. And so I just want to make sure everybody's clear. I'm not selling you Bitcoin. I'm not trying to sell you Bitcoin. This is for information, educational, kind of entertainment purposes only. So just be clear on that. Everything we talk about is just a conversation. And of course, get with your own, finance team or, finance professionals to guide you in your own particular situation. And so so how were you raised, man? I mean, we're going to get into the deep stuff in a minute, but how were you raised? What did your parents do for a living, man?
Yeah, so I was born in Pittsburgh, moved to Louisville, Kentucky for a few years. And then my dad actually ended up starting a business when I was about 5 years old. So he moved us to Columbus, Ohio, to partner with another female on an energy business. So like my grandparents were like blue collar workers. My parents then went white collar. And then my dad started entrepreneurship when I was like 7 years old. So pretty much since I can remember, I mean, obviously there's a few years that I remember when he was still in his job, but pretty much growing up, I mean, he was always, building his business. And then my mom later started an interior design business as well. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. And once I got out of the phase of wanting to be a superhero, I always wanted to get into finance. So, and the reason is because when I was young, my parents got, so after we moved to Columbus, Ohio, we then built, a house in a neighborhood. Then they ended up getting divorced. And then 2008 happened. So I went from living in like a really secure, family in a nice house to moving into a much smaller apartment with my dad and a much smaller house with my mom. And went through that whole, recession in 2008. And that obviously affected their businesses pretty significantly. So I put a really strong, I think I naturally put an emphasis on in relating like stress and security, or stress to a lack of money and security to having money. So I always knew that I wanted to have money, and I felt like that was something that I saw, like what money brought us and then what it didn't bring us. So after I got out of that superhero, like, kid phase of I want to be Superman, I wanted to then get into finance, because I asked this other gentleman that was pretty successful, or at least I perceived him as being successful, and he was a financial advisor. So I'm like, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into college, get my finance degree, and go be a financial advisor, because I want to be close to the money and always have that like security and be able to like raise, a family in a low stress house and environment. And that's ultimately why I went through college and then worked for the bank inside the United States. And then once I got there, I realized it just didn't fit my lifestyle. I was not going to shoot podcasts on the beach, I'll tell you that. So I ended up leaving there, and because it just didn't align with my values. Super great company. I mean, probably one of probably the greatest company I'll ever work for. But it was it just didn't align with my values. So I knew I wanted to do something that had uncapped earning potential. I wanted to be able to have a freedom of where I spend my time, what clothes I wear, the people I'm around, all those things. And then I also wanted to see impact on people. And I wasn't really, all those three things were not checking the boxes at that job. So that's exactly why I left there and then started, the businesses that I have today.
Thank you for watching our short clips on Alonzo Academy. If you'd like to watch the next short clip, click here. If you'd like to watch the entire podcast, click here.